All right, troops, strong and conditioned, live and direct from the Strong and Conditioned podcast in Glasgow, Scotland. And today's guest, I am very honoured to announce. In fact, I'm more than honoured. I am trembling in the knees to a certain degree because this man has been a very big influence on my own training over the last 10, 15 years. We have the one and only Dan John. Dan, how are you, brother?
Well, I'm good, Lee. I'm here in at St. Mary's in Twickenham, and just a bit south from you. A bit of a train ride down, and it's been really hot. And of course, you know when you coach and teach in unair conditioned facilities with a bunch of sweaty people, you tend to lose your voice a little bit. So if I don't have my usual soprano voice with the dulcet tones, I apologize. And just to let people, this is just coffee, nothing added to it, just coffee. Okay, just in case they're thinking I'm taking a nip as I'm going through here this morning. All right, and good morning to you, Lee. So overall, things are excellent. I could probably use a little bit more moisture in my life. Yes.
We call it a wee cheeky dram in Scotland.
Cheeky.
A wee cheeky dram. So, what brings you over to the UK at this point in time, Dan? Do you teach here?
Yeah, for the past 8 years, I think I've been a senior lecturer over at. As I point like you know where I'm. Oh yeah, right over there, over at St. Mary's, and we have a fantastic strength and conditioning master's degree, and we have students. In fact, I've had a number of students from Glasgow. Yeah, and I apologize when I speak Scottish; it's not as good as. And a number of students from Scotland. We have a couple from Wales this year. Tend to get a lot from Ireland, Malta, the Netherlands, Canada, quite a few. And I think we have our second American student this year. So yeah, it's a real diverse group. We've had students from all over the eastern part of the Europe too, and it's just a real honor. I love the diversity of the group. We have athletes and people who coach, and we have people who coach surfing. We have people who coach archery. We have someone just did a study on strength training for string quartets, which, I mean, who's ever worked on string quartets? I mean, but there's so it's wonderful, and I love the group. I love the staff is wonderful, and it's just lovely here. And so every day I walk about. Do you do miles or do you do kilometers?
We do miles in Scotland.
Yeah, so I average about 5 to 7 miles walking every day, just to do things like eat and get the laundry done and go to work. It's wonderful. It's a real vacation for me.
Well, the first thing that I picked up there was you're one of the few Americans that pronounces Glasgow by its proper name.
Oh, what's the other way to say it?
Glasgow.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm honored. And I've also been to. I've also spent a lot of time in Edinburgh. Edinburgh.
Oh well, right. So that's a double whammy. I'm surprised you never said Edinburgh.
Yeah, that's right next to hamburger. Yeah, right. Yeah.
So. Yeah. So, from a fitness perspective, can you, like, some of the people who watch my channel, they go down a certain road of fitness, and as shocking as it may be, you may not be familiar to them. So could you please give us some explanation with regards to, like, a brief rundown of your fitness journey, so to speak?
Well, sure. I mean, I think there's probably about only one or two things that explain me well, but I'll go through the whole thing. But I had a brother come home from the Vietnam War, and then my aunt died, and my aunt left my brothers $500. So this is 1965, and they went to a store called Sears, and they bought a 50-kilo, 110-pound barbell set. And when they brought it home, there was a little manual in there. And by the way, I still have the manual. I would show it. It's right there in my office. It sits right there in my office, And I looked over the workouts, and I was hooked. I mean, the first time I saw that barbell and how to train, 2 sets of 5 of clean and press, 2 sets of 5 of the deadlift. And I was 8 years old. It was 1965. And I want you to think about that, your listeners. So, the president of the United States was Lyndon Johnson. The Beatles were, probably on their third album. The Rolling Stones might have started already, but the big sound was the Beach Boys. And that's when I started lifting weights. The Mexico City Olympics haven't happened yet. And about 1971, I started, my first trophy is from 1967. And then in 1971, I started to really kind of hammer down what works and doesn't work for myself. I was a 14-year-old, and I often comment that if people would listen to 14-year-old Danny John as much as they listen to this guy, they'd probably be just as fine. I was 14 years old, and I said, 50 years from now, which is kind of funny to think about it because it's 2 years ago, I would, I wrote in my little journal, if all you did was clean and press and squat snatch, you would be fine. That's all and it's interesting because the clean and press and the squat snatch are still 2 of my probably foundational exercises. And I figured that out in 1971. I wanted to be an American football player, and I was. I played for a long time. But I read a book, about a football player, and he threw the discus and did the hurdles in the spring. So in the spring, I threw the discus and ran the hurdles. And pretty soon I picked up that I was much better suited, because of the way things are, to be an elite discus thrower. And so discus throwing paid for all my college, my university. We have the athletic scholarship system here and there in the United States. And so I was a discus thrower for, I think, I retired formally on July 24th, 2010. So basically, I had about a 41-year career as a discus thrower. I would say much of it as at least an international level, and then almost all of it as a national level, which in the United States is still pretty good. In 1979, when I got my graduate degree, my bachelor's degree, Coach Ralph Maughan asked me if I would stick around and help the track team, track and field athletics, because he was getting worried because bodybuilding was taking over the weight room. And Arnold's Education of a Bodybuilder had come out in 75. Pumping Iron had come out in about 77, I think. And by 79, everybody was, doing curls and tricep extensions. They weren't cleaning, snatching, squatting, that gone by the wayside. And so there's a chance that, I don't know, in 1979, I might have been the first track and field strength and conditioning coach, which is kind of a weird thing to say. I'm open if somebody said, no, somebody else was first, but I'm certainly in the first couple, I don't think there was anybody else at the time. And I was more of an academic for a long time. I've published articles on the poem Beowulf, a lot of work on King Arthur and the Grail legends. I had a column on religious studies for about 10 years, weekly articles. And then I wrote an article for a guy over at Testosterone Nation, Chris Schugert, asked me if I'd write an article for T Nation. And so all my academic work had brought me no money at all. Zero, not a nickel, not a shilling. Okay. Not a halfpenny. And and I wrote this article, and in that article, I got paid more than I made a month. And I said to myself, it's great that you're an academic, and my work on Beowulf, was life-changing, but I like this money thing. And then that's when I kind of slid over into writing on fitness. And it's 20 years later, and My 16th book will come out in about a month, and it's weird. I mean, people recognize me on planes, airports. I was walking up the stairs in your capital and in Scotland, and someone said, "Dan John," and so you don't get that famous writing about Beowulf. I'll tell you that. Okay, so and here we are today. I'm a senior lecturer at St. Mary's.
Okay, there's a lot to pick apart there, but what you said at the beginning caught my interest, and it was when you spoke about discovering the weights for the first time through your brother buying that weight set. Do you think that the lack of information that was available then allowed you to get better, more refined results with regards to the work you were putting in?
That is, I got to tell you, that is a very, very interesting way to ask this question. Hats off to you, my friend. That's great. You have the Rangers up in Glasgow, right?
Yes, I'm a Rangers fan, actually. So
all right, I'm just checking because I'll make a phone call and tell them to salute you at the next game. That's a very good question. That's a really good question, because the way you said it was interesting, because you said that there was very little information. Truth is, there were good magazines and good books out at the time. Here in the United States, we had Strength and Health magazine. Here in England, you had Health and Strength, which was a very, very good magazine. We had books by like Reg Park. There was a lot of good information on Olympic lifting and what we now more call power bodybuilding, because that's how people used to train bodybuilding. It wasn't just, high reps and drugs, The information we had then was battle tested information. It wasn't, and I don't know how graphic you can be, but when I grow up, I got to be careful when I talk about Instagram, because we were talking about Instagram last night. And we all made the joke at the table that my students, that we had a big party last night from our students, our graduating students. And we're all joking how Instagram's algorithm all sends us really hot, nearly naked women in our feeds. And we're just joking about, we're not actively out there seeking, women, butts and boobs. That's what the algorithm. And I wouldn't say there's good information at all out now. I think it's most, there was a lot of crap back in 1965 to today. But back then it was more like, soy-based supplements and, crappy, they would make up these, you'd buy these oils. In fact, it's interesting. There's a guy named Michael Coughlin who says, actually he studied snake oil. It's actually pretty good. It's, you've heard the word snake oil salesman. And he said, if you actually got real snake oil, it's far better than the stuff that's in these bottles. And so we had there was a lot of supplement ads. There was a couple of major supplement companies, but there was also some good supplement companies. You can't. Rio H. Blair had a really good protein product that didn't give you massive farts, unlike the Hoffman York products. Not a lot of, people would sell courses in the back of like Iron Man magazine, but most of it was free for a subscription or buy the magazine at the rack on the corner store. But the information was always fairly basic. It would have been, Dave Davis, 1974 article on how to train shot putters. Do the Olympic lifts, do the power lifts. That's still the best way I think, to train shot putters. There's more. Farmer walks and runs some hills, sure. But for strength and conditioning, you've nailed it. Yeah. So the information was good. Do the basic human movements. If you look at Reg Park's programs, the great bodybuilder, you have military press, bench press, row, pull up, deadlift, squat, heavy curls, some kind of tricep extension, some kind of ab work. See you 2 days. And it's still good advice. The human body hasn't changed that much in 50 years or so. So it is 60 years. Oh my God, 60 years. But The information then was basic. It was sound. Back in 1965, you would read articles that would say, don't ask me about supplements until you take care of your sleep. Don't ask me about protein if you're not eating vegetables. The same things I preach today. The big change, of course, at the same time, anabolic steroids were showing up and amphetamines were showing up. And so out of nowhere, people went from, if you look at Tommy Kono, Mr. Universe, I think it was about 1963. He was also a multiple Olympic champion. You look at him and it's like, you look at Steve Reeves, who later became Hercules. There's no question those guys were drug free. And we know it because there were no drugs. Well, I mean, who knows? Who knows? But you look at those body types and that's about as good. Steve Reeves, you look at his body and when he was, competing, that's a pretty good look. He's got a good look. You look at Tommy Kono when he's competing. Once the amphetamines, once the anabolics start showing up, guys are going in and doing. I mean, this is what I know this is true. There were some people who would pop amphetamines and then go in and add 20 kilos to their clean and jerk. Now, I didn't. By the way, folks, this is terrible. Don't do it. The long-term effects are brutal on you. Please, kids, drugs are bad. Thank you very much. But all of a sudden, about 65, 66, and by 68, it's there's no secret. I mean, Bill Starr has that famous article in Strength and Health where he says, if you don't use amphetamines and anabolics, forget it. You have no chance. It said that in a magazine. Little, how old was I? 6, little 11-year-old Danny John is going, what's an anabolic? What's an amphetamine? And that's when I think that's when it was about then that, and then at the same time, Arnold shows up, the book comes out, the movie, and then we just slide in. When I say weightlifting, most people hear bodybuilding. And that's when the big shift happened in the mid-70s. And that's when all the nonsense started showing up. To the point now that, we have I know this person who it's so clear has gone down the drug side of bodybuilding to watch her, and also to not only her in the physique, but in the way the brain is working. You can just see and long-term ramifications of that, especially with females. With men, you can, if you get off drugs, you kind of come back to baseline. There are changes. If you take certain things, your jaw stays, your teeth, the space stay there, the elbow ends with their growth, that stays. But with females, my voice today, how are you doing? With females, those changes stay. So it's brutal to watch what's happening. So I would just say this, Lee. I know I would talk way too long here, but all I would just say is this: the information you find in the 50s and 60s is solid, true, real, battle tested. Since then, I always have an asterisk when I read something. Okay.
Yeah. And so, you also made an interesting point in explaining that bad advice existed then, but was the signal to noise ratio? I would assume it would have been a lot more refined.
Let me say it this way, Lee. Strength and Health magazine came out once a month. Iron Man magazine came out. So if there was a stupid idea, you had 28 to 31 days before you got a new stupid idea. But you could go on Instagram or whatever right now and find in real time. You could probably find 6 stupid ideas a minute now or more. So the signal, it's not just a signal to noise ratio. It's also, and so when I was young, Iron Man had an article one time where this guy recommended, okay, you do a set of curls, you do a set of tricep extensions. Okay, you got that? And you drank a protein shake every hour on the hour. He expects you to do it for 8 hours. And a friend of mine named Randy Taylor actually did it. He went to the Pacific Barbell Club, read magazines all day, curl, extension to failure, protein drink, wait an hour. God only knows what happened to his stomach that day, but okay, he never did it again because it was a dumb idea. Well, it took him a whole month to find a new dumb idea to try. Now you don't even have time. You don't even have time to process if it's a dumb. Can't even think about it when you're getting nailed with all these ideas. So yeah, I would say. So let's just do it two ways. The amount of volume of idiocy is through the roof now. Part one. But number two, the thing I think is worse is you simply don't have the time to process an idea before you get another dumb one.
Yeah.
And if you read a book, it takes a while to put together a book. And if a book is just a bunch of idiocy, it takes about 2 or 3 years for the whole book process to finish. So if you're just using books as your training thing, that author doesn't really have time to give you another set of bad ideas if you're following my logic here.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
now all you got to do is flip the switch and, hi, I'm Dan John from DanJohnUniversity.com, and here's something I want you to do today. Hey folks, let's go, the healthiest thing you can do, go swimming in the Thames, find an eel, eat the eel raw, then with it still in your mouth, run a mile. And an hour later, I could say something else just as stupid. And you don't even have a chance to process it.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like you said, you could literally write that down, and there are people out there who would follow it because they are desperate to build muscle. Like, they're absolutely desperate to the point where they will try things that do not make sense.
But they won't do this. They won't learn how to squat correctly, and they won't deadlift, and they won't do an overhead press. But they'll do anything but farmer walks. They'll do, Coach, I'll do anything you say, except I can't squat. I don't want to squat. I don't want to deadlift. I don't want to farmer walk. I don't want to press over my head. Oh, and I don't want to, geez, I don't like this. I heard that fasting's bad for you. I heard that coffee, anything I tell people now, it's like a trampoline, same here, trampoline.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm coaching, I'm throwing shot puts on trampolines. I throw it down before I even have a chance. It's coming right back in my face, Okay, Lee, I want you to squat. I can't squat. Watch the deadlift. I got to be careful. I don't want to slam my head against this. But,
do you know, like, the thing about fitness is, like, for an example, if you like broke something in your house, like the lights, and you contact an electrician, when the electrician comes to fix the light, you don't even question him. You let him get to work, and that's it. However, fitness is that profession where a person will come to you for advice, but they know better than you. They will never take your advice on board. There's something in their head that just like speaks to them to make them think they know better, and it's something that I've never really understood. It seems to be a maligned industry in that respect. Do you think there's a reason for that?
This is your dissertation for your doctorate degree, because it's a multiple. There are, first off, everybody has their own body free and clear. They don't have to buy it.
Yeah.
So no matter how bad you look, no matter how broken you are, you're still an expert on you.
Yeah.
And but Lee, I've never heard it said so well. I really like that. In fact, I'm stealing it from me. And my own. Oh, and by the way, gentle listeners, I'm not this pale. Okay. I'm looking at the screen here. It's like, damn, I'm okay. I don't have malaria. Okay. But yeah, well, I talk about, I call her Edna, and in my books I talk about Edna who asked me about, she wanted to lose some weight. And so one of my questions is, how many diets have you done? And she said 30. And then a couple days later, she said, I forgot a couple. Well, if you've done 30 diets, then if I say you should go low carb, I tried that, I did it. I say high carb, I tried that, I did it. If I say more vegetables, I tried that, I did it. So the number of objections you have, I tell people this all the time, and it's a weird thing to say. Take a picture of yourself the first time you go on a diet, because you're never going to look that good again. Once you go down, once you start dieting, well, especially in the United States, the yo-yo begins to happen. Boom, 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 boom. And so most of the people you interact with, Lee, probably have done diets, and they've probably done something, I talked to a lot of people when Bikram yoga was a kind of a rage a couple of years ago. I'll say to someone, you need to do mobility. And they'll say, well, I did mobility. I did Bikram yoga. Well, the problem with Bikram yoga, besides Bikram, class is an hour and a half. You had to show up early to get a space, so that you're looking at an hour and 45 minutes. And then afterwards, you look like an axe murderer for like a half an hour, because so you couldn't really do anything. So you're looking at a almost 3-hour commitment, and they would tell you to come every day. So the person would go once or twice and then be like, mentally, I'm never doing that again. Then they go to the workout that shall not be named, and they go there and they would do, jumping jacks, followed by burpees, followed by Olympic snatches, followed by deadlifts, followed by box jumps for 5 rounds. And they couldn't walk for days because their knees hurt, their back hurt, their shoulders hurt. Well, I'm not doing that. Okay. Then they got it. I'm going to run a marathon, and they run a few times without any preparation, and their knees would hurt, their ankles would hurt, their back would hurt. So then they come to me and say, help me. And it's like, no matter what they do, they've done it, it hurt, and they're not going to do it again. There's just not that many options left to help them. But where you help them is what Art Devaney famously said at the workshop. Woman raised her hand and said, what do you do? How do you get rid of fat? And Art said, don't get fat in the first place. And that really upset her, but it's absolutely true. Take care of things when you're 8, 9, 10 years old. And you're just from 18 to 26, don't let yourself, you don't have to be at the pub every night, knocking down pint after pint after pint, and then sitting in chairs all day. Take care of it. Peter Attia has a great line. He says, if you could see yourself 5 years before you died, you would probably make changes in the way you do things. You know what I say? No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. Very, very few people have the vision of 50 years later. I'm not patting myself on the back, but hats off to myself at 14 when I said, here's some exercises I want to be doing when I'm, 65. I'm 66 now. And so, I'm glad I made those decisions in my 20s, 30s, 40s, because I'm reaping the benefits today.
Yeah. I think that you've also got to factor in that, like, people do have an inherent laziness, and it's also combined with the need to escape pain, and those two don't really run in synergy with fitness, because the more sensible approach is to take things steadily, because the journey is lifelong. And when you factor in the marketing that dominates fitness, which is set to strict deadlines, 12-week, 8-week plans, then it starts to muddy the waters somewhat, because people go into this with a lack of knowledge to some degree, and they're only going on what they're hearing before they're actually starting to chip away and find about the stuff that really matters, the stuff that's going to determine a long-term effect. And it's how you can relay that information, which is something you excel at, which is going to lead me on to my next question, or my next monologue. It's one of the books you wrote had a very profound effect on my training, and it was Mass Made Simple.
Really? Huh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
That's such a considering where our conversation has been going. So Mass Made Simple would counter a lot of things I've just said.
Yeah, I know, but
But
it ties in with my experience, because one of the things that's always captured my attention with you is your writing style, which I find to be like, in a world of machismo dominated fitness, I find your writing style is it's quite gentle. And you'll read one of your books, and they're very easy to read, they're very easy to digest, but they're gentle to a certain degree. The information's very easy to take on board, but your programs are absolutely brutal. So you lead people into a false sense of security, and that's what happened with me with Mass Made Simple. Mass Made Simple to me was like a rocket, like up my derriere, so to speak, because it was the first ever program that took me into a dark place. So that's like, to go on to the more like programming sense of things. How do you what is your mindset when you create these brutal programs, and do you write about them in such a style to lull people into that false sense of security?
I think, okay, so this is my belief. I think that building lean body mass without drugs is probably the hardest thing we can do. It is very difficult. So when I work with American football or rugby or special forces, and they say, I want a bigger engine, I don't think you can do it. I get you can. You could do it over a 10-year period. Okay, over 10 years, I can probably get you where Mass Made Simple will take you in 6 weeks. I don't know of a single person who's going to invest 5 years, 10 years into doing it. So what I think when it comes to something like building lean body mass, we circle the calendar and we say, here's when we're going to commit to it. And strangely, if 6 weeks, it's a 6-week program, as you know, 6 weeks is probably the upper limit, I think, that you can do something hard. If you think about, one of the things, if you, in the military experience, you have boot camps that last 13 weeks. I know the Royal Marines is really long. I want to say the Royal Marines is half a year, I think, right?
Yeah, I think it is. 32 weeks, I think it is.
Holy, yeah, that's huge. So what happens is when you have a boot camp that's far longer than the 6 weeks, it's not about the physical. They're not trying to shape it. They're not trying to get you in shape. They're trying to reshape the way you think, act, and react.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
When you get to week 6 in boot camp, that's when that's when you start to change. That's when your worldview starts to slide into a different direction. Without a boot camp situation where we have the friendly drill sergeant nudge you awake every morning, little Lee, time to wake up. If you're going to do it on your own, there's a 6 week time limit. You'll also notice that the first 2 workouts in Mass Made Simple, week 1, and it does extend into week 2, the workouts are very light in load, and the reps are, you do kilos or pounds, my friend?
Kilos.
Okay, so the first workout is I don't know, it's 45 kilos. It's 40 is fine. It doesn't matter. You're going to do 40 kilos for a set of 25 or 30 reps in the back squat. It's not hard. It's doable, But when you're doing a set of 30 with, 40 kilos, somewhere around set rep 15, 16, 17, you have to remind yourself how light the load is, and you still have what, 13, 14, 12 reps to 11 reps to go, 10 reps to go. When you're doing those sets of 50, most people, I work with people who could probably do 50 reps with 100 kilos the very first time they step to the bar, but their brain can't do it. They could, to save the planet, to save their family, they could do it. At the end of the 6 weeks, you step onto the bar and you do it with total confidence because you've built up there. And it's all those reps. It's all that time. How about those complexes? Didn't that look easy on paper?
Yeah, that's my next question, actually. I was going to ask about them.
Okay, so the complexes look easy on paper. You look at the bench press and you say, don't you know who I am? I'm Lee, okay? I can do that. Then you get to the one-arm presses and it's like, I still got to squat. You do those workouts, about 2 or 3 times a week. The workouts by themselves are long. They make a massive hit, massive adaptation, massive stimulus to the body. To the point that people shake when they finish those workouts. Literally, they shake. And then what I ask you to do for the next few days is eat as much as you physically can. Zip up a hoodie, walk around, sit a lot, get some sleep. Don't do anything and let the body adapt. That works, and then it doesn't, and then we stop the program and move on.
Yeah.
So I also think I have 2 theories about fat loss. I also think you either do it in 28 days, or it becomes a 6-month to 18-month glide.
Yeah.
In fat loss, both works. 28 days then has to be followed very strictly with an intelligent glide. You have to, otherwise it'll come, literally, it'll come right back. So building lean body mass has to be, I was going to say a baseball bat, a cricket bat to the head to stimulate the adaptions. If you ever train with me, if you come down here, you come to my home gym, one of the things you'll notice is that I call it park bench training. Do you know this concept? Should I explain?
No.
Okay, park bench and bus bench.
Oh yeah, I do.
So I'm across the street from a famous park, and in that park is a bench. When I go to that park and I sit on that bench and I watch, I watch the river go by, and I watch the children play, and I watch the ducks and the geese.
Yeah.
If a squirrel comes by, great. If a squirrel doesn't come by, I don't care either. So you take that same bench and you put it right outside my door here where there's a bus stop. It's the same bench, but at a bus stop, there's a huge difference. I expect something to happen. I expect a bus to come by when it's supposed to come by. Okay, so park bench programs are programs where you come in, you push, pull, hinge, squat, loaded carry, you do your mobility, you go for a walk, you hang from a bar, or you do whatever you're going to do. And for me, I still think park bench is the best way to be successful for fat loss, for lean body mass gain, and for athletic performance. Having said that, I'm in an industry that just pushes bus bench programs. 8 weeks, 2 weeks to a tighter tummy is an Ellington Darden book. I always joke, 6 weeks to Titanic traps, 9 weeks, horrendous hamstrings, whatever. 2 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. Everybody, I get these emails all the time. Everybody, join me in a 30-day challenge. Everybody, here, send me money and I'll give you this 30-day workout. It's a bunch of crap. Most of them are just crap. Most of them are just a lot of, like kettlebell complexes, or, just, burpees followed by jumping jacks followed by running in place. It's just crap thrown against the wall. It's just a bunch of words throw it against the wall. You pay money for it. You get it. You do one workout, and then you're back to what you always do, whatever that is. If you're American, it's bench press and curl. So for me, most of the time, I would prefer, if in my perfect universe, everybody I work with would sleep 9 hours. They would meditate. They would fast before they got to the workout. They would push, pull, hinge, squat, loaded carry, mobility work, go for a walk. Afterwards, have a heavy protein, heavy vegetable meal, drinking a lot of water. Later in the day, they would have another protein, veggie, water, or whatever. They get a great night's sleep. They'd have a wonderful community. They'd have great friends, and they would never eat candy. They would never eat sugar. They would never eat fast food. And in my imaginary world, I also have wings, because everything I just said, the wings is the least. That I like the chance of me getting wings. Just fantasy.
So the park bench like style, like it kind of reminds me of Chinese water torture in that respect, where it's just a drip, a constant flow, which is probably not going to make an immediate impact, but over time it's going to burrow a hole through the rock. Whereas the bus stop workouts they're almost like a reference point to show you how hard you can drive the body. So if you want to create a stimulus that your body must overcome in order to adapt.
Exactly. I think generally with most people, I think about 10 months of the year should be park bench.
Yeah.
And if you want to gear up, if you do want to, like after Christmas, I don't know, do you guys eat too much in Christmas and New Year's here?
Yeah, I think the Western world eats too much in general. I think that's pretty much the way it is. Christmas is probably just a wee bit more, but for the most part, I think it's a free-for-all.
Yeah. Well, in the United States, basically, we have an arc from a holiday called Thanksgiving to now it goes to the Super Bowl, that American football game. So it used to be the 2 weeks of Christmas were a problem, but then Thanksgiving to Christmas, then Thanksgiving to Christmas to New Year's. Now it's Thanksgiving to Christmas to New Year's to the Super Bowl. And then after the Super Bowl, people say, I've got to get in shape. Well, if you tell me then I want to go on a 4-week, I want to just clean up my diet, I want to eat clean, I support you 100%. 100%. In about 3 to 6 weeks, most people can do it. But then you got to go back to whatever normal is for you. And then maybe if you want to get ready for bikini or whatever in the summer, good for you. If you want to, dial it up, your training. Most people really get almost no impact. But this idea that you can do it 52 weeks a year, dial it up, have a perfect diet and a perfect training program 52 weeks of the year. Frankly, I just don't see it.
I think fat loss, I think people they look at fat loss and putting on mass differently. People look at putting on mass as the fun element of dieting, where they get to eat what they want and they get to eat it in larger volumes. And then the fat loss becomes this barren desert fueled by pain.
But go back, Lee, what did I tell you in Mass Made Simple? How hard is it to shovel down all that food?
That's what I'm getting onto. That's what I'm getting onto. So fat loss is this painful process where you can't eat. But when you actually look at the mindset that kicks in, or that you need to create, which is that fat loss is easy in that respect, because if you're feeling hungry, then you are having the desired effect. What you are doing is working at that point. Whereas when you start to bulk and shovel down food, you create the environment to become more hungry. And if you're not consuming food, you begin to get stressed out because you think that the magic isn't taking place. So bulking becomes a more stressful concept, because you're having to eat every 2-3 hours. You're having to make sure the nutrition is of a certain quality. And you are also having to pay a lot more nowadays with food inflation. So it's just a stressful situation, I find, in general.
So in the book, for the gentle listeners, I recommend you carry a backpack with you, and in the backpack you have a loaf of bread, a jar of peanut butter, jelly or jam or whatever, marmalade, whatever you like. And then every so often you pull it out and you take your knife, which you carry with you, and you make peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and you just shove those down. And it's interesting because if you remember in the book, I say, I can't believe I'm still telling people, I can't believe I've come to this. We tried hard-boiled eggs. Impossible. You can't shovel down hard-boiled. You just can't. It's just, oh God, it's so satiating. Oh, I'm done.
It's a cool hand
I had
look.
a friend tell me, I bought myself a bunch of cans of tuna fish and a can opener. And I said, yeah, because, the great Dave Draper used to do it. And I'm like, you'll eat one can of tuna fish and you'll never do it again. I've had a tin of sardines or herring or what, anchovy,
Yeah.
tins. You can't. Your brain is going to go, we're satiated. But with peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, you can keep shoving them in.
Yeah.
And I'm not
Especially
proud of that.
Especially if you throw a banana in there as well. I think a banana turns it into some dessert.
Oh, okay. But here you are. I mean, when my athletes do Mass Made Simple, the feedback I constantly get is, I just can't wait to eat, just, and they get like dreamy eyed about it. I'm looking forward to a salad, a bowl of soup. Yeah. Oh, that sounds good. Yeah. And then because so one of the things the reason I do some of the things I do is I'm just trying to tell you, Lee, you're not wired for it. So trust the park bench stuff. Trust the reasonable stuff, because obviously, when I'm working with American football players who truly, part of their job is to be bigger. They're trying to turn themselves in from a kitchen chair into a sofa. That's sadly, that's the sport. A sofa that runs fast, a couch, a sofa. It makes sense?
Yeah, a couch.
Okay, and there's going to be a lot of glory in the fall if I can get you from here we go. If I can get you from 14 stone to 20 stone in a couple of years, you're going to be a machine that hurts people. You notice I threw stone in there for you? You're welcome. But it is hard. It's going to be hard to play American football. When I played, you would have guys who weighed 75 kilos on the field. That same guy now is 105 kilos. The fast guys, the people who are just speed burners. In the 1940s, the University of Oklahoma had a team where they had Tommy McDonald, and he weighed about 63 kilos, and he was the best player on the field. He wouldn't last 5 plays now. He would just get, well, maybe he would, but the season now, when he played, it was 8 games. Now it could be as high as 23 games in a year.
Yeah.
We're running the same. Man City just won the championship.
The treble. Right? Yeah, the treble.
And so they won this, they won this, they won this.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm a betting person, and I'm not, I would bet that Man City's going to have a really poor year next year.
Yeah.
Because they've just boom, boom, boom. The physical toll on all of that. And that's not making fun of soccer football, but you don't have guys like me running into you, in the Premier League. You got, and if you do, you lay on the ground and you flop for an hour and a half. But in the National Football League and Division I football, the National Football League has 120. The good teams have a 120% injury rate. Injuries mean you miss a game.
Yeah.
120% means every player on the team misses at least one game.
Yeah.
120 means that's by the way, that's a good number is 120%.
Yeah.
There are teams that have much higher numbers. Literally, we know we're going to lose you for a game to injury every year.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So if you want to play that game in the off season, you've got to eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. You get
the highly anabolic food that is peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
And by the way, folks, I disagree with what I just said, except it's true, so I have to agree with it.
Okay, right. So, Dan, I have to go back a little bit because the question that I intended to ask was the inclusion of barbell complexes in Mass Made Simple, which intrigues me to a certain degree. And the reason being that my experience with complexes was reading them through, I think it was his name's Alan Cosgrove article in T Nation many years ago.
Alan uses them for fat loss.
Yes.
By the way, I use them for fat loss.
Yeah. And that's the lens that I seen a complex through, was a fat loss tool with relatively lightweight, but done for high repetitions to put the body through the ringer, so to speak. Whereas in Mass Made Simple, it was turned on its head where it was heavyweight, done for lower reps. And it's been something unique that I've never seen replicated in any program before or after. So,
the reason no one else does it is hard.
Yeah.
And no, I mean that. I mean, when I meet some of these other people who ride a lot, one of the first things I pick up on is like, have you ever lifted a weight? I know you ride a lot. So this is something I discovered with my weight room. I started using complexes as a way. I was trying to break my athletes from thinking too much. What happens sometimes, and you'll see bad coaches do it. So for a clean, you will address the bar. You will put your thumb around the bar. You will put your fingers over the bar. You will then straighten out your elbow. They overcoach.
Yeah.
Which makes the athlete overthink. Well, when you're doing complexes, it says 8 cleans. Well, if you're going to think through 8 cleans, the workout's going to take an hour and a half. So you start to get that rhythm. Then there's 8 front squats. Boom, boom. Your heart's beating. And you want to get these front squats, 8, boom, 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 boom. 8 militaries, which the nice thing about having militaries in a complex is it keeps the load down. After the 8 militaries, boom, 8 squats, 8 good mornings, pop it back over, 8 deadlifts, 8 rows, whatever it is. Well, the original idea was I was trying to get my athletes to quit, thinking 1, 2, 3, and just start to flow with the bar.
Yeah.
The same way you learn in sports, would you play rugby? What would be a sport you play?
Soccer, football.
Okay. So when you're in a football game and someone passes you the ball, you don't say, okay, now stomp the ground with your right foot and then turn your toe out and then strike the ball in a fluid manner towards you never get the ball, B, never score. You couldn't make a pass to save your life. So it just, if I kick a ball to you, you react and bring the ball back to me, right?
Yeah.
You don't think about it.
Yeah.
So we have to do the same thing in the weight room. That was the original reason I added complexes to my teenagers, to my high school kids. Well, pretty soon we started adding them up because I also figured out it's a good little workout. And very quickly, my athletes started to kind of swell up physically. And then the dads started asking, the dads would ask the kid, hey, can you bring me some of these? So I noticed I was handing the kid, got to get a copy of the complexes. And pretty soon the fire department at the area I was at, the school in the city I was in, they started coming over and asking me. And so I taught the fire department complexes. And all of a sudden I'm sitting there one day going, this is a gold mine. Everybody, because it's not, you don't like doing complexes, but when I see you do them, and I see after about 2 or 3 weeks, and it's very quick, the physical adaptations are very quick. After 2 or 3 weeks, I look over at you and you look better. And then that's, and then I figured out that complexes with high rep squats were probably the 2 best lean body mass builders I'd ever used in a program.
Yeah. So one thing that stands out to me about that is that the current trend in fitness is, or weight training, is to be optimal. It's to target muscles that have to be aligned with Venus at night and things to that nature. Whereas Mass Made Simple is just raw, relentless, hard work, which focuses more on just load on the overall body. And
time under tension.
Yeah.
Think about how long you have the bar. Think about how long you have the bar in your hand when, just a moment, okay? Thank you. Think about how long you have a bar in your hand on complexes, and then think about how long the bar is on your back. This is water, gentle listener, in the high rep back squats. Yeah. So you're right. It's raw, but it's also long.
Yeah. And that's always tied in with my belief that training should be like, particularly in the bus stop workout domain, that training has to be brutal in a sense where your body does have to overcome something. You have to go through a challenge style workout, as opposed to a volume based workout where you're just steadily increasing numbers throughout the week and trying to get close to failure. Whereas you programmed the reps so that you had no choice but to get to failure, and then some, possibly to the point of mental failure, because when you're doing 50 rep squats with body weight, it's like you said, it's a mental challenge. It's not a physical challenge. It's a mental challenge. And that, to me, sorry.
Do you remember on the program, I have those up to 50 workouts?
Yeah.
So, gentle listener, when in the program, you put your body weight on the back squat, and I say up to 50. And it doesn't matter how you get to 50 reps. And if you want to do 5 sets of 10, okay, that's good. But what people start to, in fact, that's my favorite workout, is up tos. That's my favorite workout to program, because sometimes we'll do up to 25 on a press workout.
Yeah.
And what's nice about that is as I'm doing the press, sometimes you'll notice the reps go like 7, and then the next round is 9, and the next round is 3, and then the next one is 4, and then the next one is 9. And what's not that staccato that happens is, to me, much more natural than. But the other thing that you said was good. I liked the mental side of it. Okay, I'm just going to do one more. If you rack it at 8 reps, you still have 42 to go. And the next time you do that, you'll say, I'm just going to get this. I don't want to swear on your podcast, but there's an adjective that has F in there. I'm going to get this adjective workout done. I hate these adjectives. You're just going
to. Yeah. Remember, Dan, I'm Scottish. Like, our first words are usually swear words. So
yes. Your adjectives. Yeah. It's like being in Ireland. Yeah, it's like that. Yeah. So one of the things I like about what you said there is the mental challenge, and that's where the up twos is about. The up twos are just greasing your brain up. Like people have said to me, so should I do 2 sets of 25? And I just want to say to them, how the hell would I know? I mean, how am I going to know if 20? You might be doing the worst reps in history at rep 12. I don't want you to keep going. Stop, rack it. Do what you got to do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, Dan, I know you're a busy man, and I know that you have a certain amount of time that you can give to the podcast, and I'm very appreciative of you coming on. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Let's do it again.
Great guy to listen to. So just before I go, can you tell the listeners where they can find you on YouTube and Instagram if you've got one.
Sure. The best place to find me is danjohnuniversity.com. And if your listeners want, it's a paid site. You get a free 2 week, but this will give you a big discount. And capital letters, type in ESPEN, ESPEN, and that'll give you a nice big discount. I mean, I can't give it away for free because it's a business, but it's basically just pays for just pays for the stuff. So that'll save you. And there's books on there. There's all kinds of free stuff. So help yourself. And then there's also we have a bookstore, danjohnuniversity.com/bookstore. And that's where my new book, Easy Strength Omnibook, only place you can get it. Then on YouTube, I don't know what I am on YouTube. I don't know what I think you just type in Dan John, I think. And I don't know what I don't know what it is. Because I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Usually everybody this rolls off their tongue.
No, that's something I probably should find out. Huh?
Yeah, it would probably be.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Lee, I'm not dumb.
You're just that type of guy, Dan.
And then my Instagram is Coach Dan John. Okay.
Okay.
But it's fun if you do go on and type in Dan John on Instagram. There's an Italian clothes store, and there's me, and I think it's hilarious. People send me pictures all the time from their vacation in Italy because it's like a chain. So it'll say Dan John, and I always say, "Yeah, just go on and ask for the discount. Tell me you know me." And in fact, one of my listeners sent me perfume called Dan John, which I think is kind of funny. So Coach Dan John, and if you type in Dan John, you'll get an interesting little. Yeah. Once you're on the clothing site, you'll figure it out after about 2 or 3 seconds. I hope when you see a bunch of skinny Italian guys with pants that don't fit very well. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll have to order myself some Dan John perfume to put on after a workout, but.
Well, okay. I tell you what, Lee will be the best smelling man.
Okay, well, listen, Dan, thank you very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.